Calgary Flames fans, it's time for Flames Unfiltered. Entertaining and controversial hockey talk with your host, Brad Burud. Back-to-back domination of the Minnesota Wild. Makes us forget that disaster in Vancouver pretty quickly. Good evening and welcome to Flames Unfiltered, March 2nd, 2022. Coming at you after more wins in Calgary. I am the host of the show, Brad Burud, and good to be with you. Always fun to do this on Wednesday nights, and man, the Flames are red hot. They're more than red hot. Oh, I don't even know what you even say anymore. The losing streak did come to an end, and it was a weird feeling. I almost feel like it was good that it was an ass kicking. I'll explain that a little bit more later on in the show. I'd have preferred it wasn't against the Canucks. But it's easy to forget when you look at the Flames, and they're 14-2 in their last 16 games. February, tied right around the best month ever in the history of the Calgary Flames with a 10-1 record in the month of February. How do you get mad with that? Elliot Friedman says, to me, the Pacific Division is Calgary and everyone else. You love hearing that. That's from one of the biggest insiders in the game. This is a very good hockey team. A very, very good hockey team. Just in the last week, I've come to terms with admitting publicly that I feel like this team is a cup contender. Now, a lot has to go the Flames' direction. Injuries need to stay down. Playing, and everything's got to be clicking. But this team is trending in the right direction. And I see tons and tons of positive things when you look at the Calgary Flames. Today's show, we're going to start by recapping that Canucks crushing. And we'll talk a little bit about the Flames' back-to-back wins over a Minnesota Wild team that I think is fantastic. And then we'll discuss the impact of that 7-1 loss to Vancouver. How did that change the team? How did it change the fan base perspective? And then Kyle Lewis and Justin Thompson join the show. And we're going to talk with each of them. They are true Calgary Flames fans. They're on Twitter every single night when games are on. And I wanted to get a fan's perspective of the success this team's having. Those two guys join the show, and it is very, very fun, very, very entertaining talk. Then we'll go into talking about some Flames news, discuss news around the Pacific Division. We'll preview Thursday night's battle against the Montreal Canadiens. And then that monster clash on Saturday night where the class of the Western Conference goes head-to-head in Colorado when the Flames visit the Colorado Avalanche. Thanks for joining us on another great episode of Flames Unfiltered. All right, Flames fans, we got a jam-packed show today. It's a fun one. Always love having good guests on the show. Let's recap a couple games. Last Thursday night, the 24th of February, Calgary goes into Vancouver. And that rivalry, I don't know. It's big. I think that rivalry is almost as big as the Edmonton one. I get as excited and nervous for the Canucks games as I do the Oilers ones. And this one did not go the Flames' way at all. After a 0-0 after one, the Canucks rattled off 5 in the second, added 2 more in the third. Markstrom with a loss. JT Miller gets a game-winning goal. He had 2 goals, 2 assists. Elias Pettersson has 2 goals and an assist. Bo Horvat, 2 goals. Wow. 7-1 shellacking of the Calgary Flames, and the win streak is done. Elias Lindholm's record is done. And not a good night in Vancouver. We're going to talk a little bit more about the details of that game in section 1 of the show. let's pretend it didn't happen. Let's talk about the Minnesota Wild series. Saturday night, the Minnesota Wild hit the Saddle Dome for a Hockey Night in Canada battle, and it was all Calgary. 3-1 after the first goals. Well, you know what? Minnesota scored first, and we have not dealt with that a lot in Calgary this year, and it's always fun. I worried about it a lot more earlier in the year when another team would score on us because I was like, oh, how's this team going to react to that? Does this team have the fight? Well, I think we all agree that this team does have the fight. As Frederick Gaudreau scored a minute 36 into the game, Tyler Toffoli answered at the 10:29 mark, his 12th of the season. Just over a minute later, Matthew Tkachuk on the power play makes it 2-1. Gabranson makes it 3-1 after one. Wow. On to the second. Edm Cgy gets a home goal. That was good. That's his 27th of the year. Blake Coleman scores one shorthanded with under a minute to go. Backbreaker. Things were cooked for the Minnesota Wild after that. 5-1 after two. Headed into the third period, Minnesota does get two at the 13:25 mark. Nick Bjugstad scores. And this is right after the Oliver Kylington injury, which we'll dive into later on in the show. Nick Bjugstad scores, followed by Kirill Kaprizov just over a minute later, and all of a sudden it was 6-2. Minnesota did pull their goalie way early. Matthew Tkachuk added his 26 at the 18:06 mark. Calgary wins it, a big win, 7-3 game-winning goal to Edm Cgy. Jacob Markstrom with his 24th win of the season. Back-to-back scenario. That's Sunday, Monday off. They head to Minneapolis to the Xcel Energy Center last night, March 1st, and Calgary on the board right away. 2 goals in the first, puts them up 2-0. Pretty much locked it into cruise control after that. Each team shared goals in the second. Calgary adds 2 more in the third. 5-1 final. Shots on goal. Calgary actually was outshot. 27-33. Minnesota outshoots the Flames, which has been a rare occurrence this year. But this was a game. Lindholm had a goal and an assist. Markstrom a .97 and makes 32 saves. Allows 1. Tyler Toffoli a goal and an assist. He was really good. 17:44 for time on ice is his numbers, and power play. He's been moved on to the power play 1 line. And I got a little fast fact on my phone I saved here as I was heading to air that I saw that was pretty darn impressive. Since he moved on to that power play 1, the Flames are 5 for 13 on the power play. Gotta like that one. And even our power play 2, Monahan got a goal in that one. I believe it was in the first game against the Minnesota Wild. So this team is rolling, and they didn't just beat an average team in Minnesota. I think this Minnesota Wild team is one of the top teams in that Western Conference. And you look at the standings and you look at how it sits, and we'll pull up the wild card and take a look at that. Minnesota currently sits on the 3rd spot in the Central. I would consider the forces in the West to be Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota, Calgary. And I once would have said Vegas, but I don't know. That team is sliding, and I don't know if I put them in that category right at the moment. But that can happen. Teams are going to have ups and downs. Minnesota is in a big down right now. They've won 3 of their last 10. They're losers of 4 straight. But I don't think the team's unraveling. I think they've had a couple bad outings, and they've been beaten by a really good Flames team. Mike Russo does a wonderful job reporting for The Athletic on the Minnesota Wild. I'm probably the most in-touch guy with the Minnesota Wild. He was flat out just blatantly honest and just said Calgary's a fantastic hockey team. And we have a lot to be proud of, a lot to be happy for, and a lot to be excited for as we head down in this playoff stretch. And back-to-back wins in Minnesota against Minnesota is pretty big. Let's talk about this disastrous date in Vancouver. Saturday night, it's a hockey night in Canada. Flames are looking to mark a win streak, an all-time record. Elias Lindholm's looking for an all-time record. Things were clicking along. And the Flames get thumped. So what was our feelings? What was the impact of that blowout loss? Was it better that it was a blowout or worse? Now, in my mind, I think it was better. Because it was one of those games you just crumple up and you throw it in the trash can. And I think a lot of players did. And I think that was a sentiment from a lot of players about the flight home. It was one of those things. Is it crazy that I'm happy that we got blown out? No, I don't think I ever want to get blown out. I sure as hell don't want to get blown out to the Vancouver Canucks. But the fact that the streaks were not lost in a 4-3 game where we didn't play very good, and that it was a game where we can really look in the mirror and go, wow, that really went bad. I mean, when you think about it, there was a magnitude of, just a flourish of bad luck. And I'm not blaming it in saying that the Flames should have won this game, because they shouldn't have. They were fine 5-on-5. It was 0-0 after 1. Then Elias Pettersson scores on a power play. JT Miller scores on a power play. Bo Horvat scores unassisted. It's 3-0. Then Bo Horvat's on a power play. JT Miller is on a penalty shot. Let's talk a little bit about that. So we get 2 power play goals. We're obviously taking too many penalties. And like Lucic said, if a team's scoring on the power play, you sure as hell better not be taking any more penalties. And then the skate blade breaks for Jacob Markstrom. Goes to the bench, can't get it repaired. All of a sudden, Dan Vladar's thrown in. And just a few seconds after he's thrown in on either killing a penalty. And Vladar has to come in cold. Gets scored on right away on a scrum in front of the net. And then just a few minutes later, JT Miller is awarded a penalty shot. And he scores. And on the penalty shot, you can see Dan Vladar's right leg pad's loose. The buckle's hanging off. I don't know if that's because he came in like he did in a rush or what, or if it just came on loose. After 2, it's 5-0. Like, what are we doing? This is not going to get any better. So Markstrom doesn't play in the third. And I thought Vladar was fine in the third. Connor Garland scored his 14th, and then Elias Pettersson scored a shorthanded one. And this night was not going the Flames' way. Majapani gets one towards the end. And I think when you look at this night, it's like, I think the players realize, hey, we need to stay out of the penalty box. Every night's not going to go exactly the way you plan it to go. This team has been excellent at dealing with adversity, coming back, fighting through tough times. And this night, it just wasn't going for them. The puck bounces were not going their way. Although I didn't feel like they gave up. It just was not their night. And before you know it, it was 7 goals, just like that. I was sad that we lost. I wanted the records. But in a strange way, this blowout loss just created a refocus for the team. And I think it did for the fan base, right? But what's reality? Like, we're not going to win every game from here on out. I mean, holy cow, we are clicking along at a pace that's almost scary. We've got to learn how to deal with a few losses. Might be better. This might be the way call this team needed. And I'm super happy with the way they responded at home against Minnesota. They come right out of the gates and we're a good hockey team and capitalize on opportunities. And that's something that didn't happen in Vancouver. They didn't capitalize on opportunities. And Vancouver was working hard that night, which is something that Vancouver doesn't always do. And the breaks didn't go the Flames' way, and they got their ass kicked. The positive is they rebounded with 2 strong performances, and that's way in the rearview mirror already. Joining Flames Unfiltered now, Kyle Lewis. You can check him out on Flames Twitter almost every night during the games. And Kyle, thanks for joining me.
That's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, what we're going to do today is just, I wanted to talk to a group of the fans, and we're doing this in like kind of 4 segments throughout the year, but just chat about why you're a Flames fan and the current happenings that are going on with the team right now, and a lot going on and good things to talk about this year. In years previous, when I've done these, it's been a lot of negative talk some years, but we can talk all positive. We were talking a little bit before we got on the show that you're out on the East Coast, and tell us where you're from. And boy, it's got to be a struggle to be up late at night for some of these things for you.
Well, like you kind of alluded to, it's nice that this year they make it well worth my time. But yeah, I'm based in Moncton, New Brunswick, just outside of Moncton, actually, in Riverview. I've been a fan for, well, most of my life, so 20 some years anyway, 25, 26 years probably, around the time I was 8 or 9 years old. So oddly enough, just became a fan because I was a big fan of the color red, and then I saw Theo Fleury play at the time and just loved the way he played the game, and that's kind of how it started. Moreover, I guess one of the things about it for me, it being so late, was that I was able to, everybody else in the house would be in bed and I'd be up watching my team play. So it was kind of my thing as a kid, right? So it just kind of stuck from there.
Kind of sounds similar to me. I know I started liking the Calgary Flames for the craziest of reasons too, and I know I like the late games because now we'll get the kids settled in and stuff, and I can actually watch the games and stay up late and enjoy that. I don't have to stay up quite as late as you do. I'm not in the same time zone. I don't know how you do that, but yeah, it's crazy. You're just listening to you talk about your story of becoming a Flames fan and watching Theo Fleury, and it's like, man, it's just this is the exact same reason that I became a Flames fan, and that's cool to hear. What's some of your greatest Flames memories?
Well, obviously, 2004 was unbelievable. I was in high school at the time, and everybody in the East Coast cares about Toronto, Montreal, or Boston almost exclusively. So to have everybody around me all of a sudden care about my team and be following my team was pretty awesome, especially after those really, really lean years, prior to that in the early 2000s, the Young Guns era, right? So that was one of my favorite times as a fan. Apart from that, just anytime I've gone to Calgary has always been a blast. I'm usually there every 2 to 3 years for a few games. Most recently for Jarome Iginla's jersey retirement in 2019.
Cool.
And and prior to that, I was lucky enough to attend games 3 and 4 against Anaheim in the second round of the 2015 playoffs when Gaudreau scored his tying goal with 19 seconds left and Backlund won overtime. And I'll be hard pressed to ever replicate that memory.
Oh, those are definitely some good memories to get back for Jerome's is definitely a special. And anytime you can get to a playoff game, whether it be especially in the Saddle Dome, but I mean it's memorable experiences. Growing up over the last 20 years now, and getting into it more and more as you've went along. So, who are some of your favorite players?
I mentioned Fleury obviously as a kid. Obviously, Jarome Iginla goes without saying. Robin Regeer was a huge fan of his. Go back just a little bit further, kind of the same time period. Denny Gauthier. I love the way that he played. He was a very reckless hitter, but one of the best open ice hitters that I ever watched. And really, I mean, apart from that, Craig Conroy was a big fan of his. Damon Lankow too. Christian Uselius, I thought, was one of the most skilled players the team ever had for the short time he was there.
I agree. I have a jersey.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. Alex Tanguay is another one that comes to mind. I've got a couple of his game-worn jerseys in the basement, actually. I was a big fan of his.
Yeah. It's funny how this team has progressed and the ups and the downs and the struggles it's been to be a fan and the good moments. There's been some really, really cool moments, but this year is definitely got to be, and hopefully continues, but is one of them that's, it's really kind of been a storybook year as it's went. I felt so much confidence watching this team each night and watching them progress and just is how it's developed into where they're at in the standings right now. What do you think the biggest reason for that success is this year?
Well, to your point, I mean, the big difference for me as a fan watching is that every game they play, I feel confident they're likely to win. And I couldn't tell you the last time I really felt that way. But the biggest reasons for it, I think, is obviously Daryl Sutter's structure is just, it's a bulletproof way to play the game if your players buy in, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, I think he's the number one reason for it. Obviously, Jacob Markstrom's been really, really good defensively as a six-man unit. Like, I was very critical of Nikita Zadorov and Eric Edbranson when they were signed last summer. I thought those were like, okay, a couple slow, big, hulking guys, typical Daryl Sutter type moves, which they were. But, I got to admit, those two have been very solid on a lot of nights. And there's been a few times they struggled, but overall, very, very impressive. Goodbranson in particular, like last night, was just awesome.
By far, I thought his best night.
Yeah. He looked, and even the interview he gave, I think it was in the first intermission or the second intermission, like it was so candid and so honest, and really, he felt really good for the guy, right?
He's hard not to cheer for, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, especially for a career journeyman, I don't think he's played more than 2 years in the same city. I mean, he was in Ottawa, he was in, I think, what was he before that? I can't even remember.
He was in Vancouver too, I think.
That's right. Yeah, Vancouver.
Yeah, he just seems like he ends up being a weapon boy everywhere he goes. And I was pretty critical of that signing too. I was like, I thought, there was a chance I thought that those two signings would be okay, but I thought if they weren't, it would be a disastrous year because, and I'm not pinning the year on them, but I'm just saying that like the way our defense is developed with Kylington coming into the picture and Zadorov and Gabranson surprising us. I mean, you build this team out, and for the once we actually went into a season, just like last year though too, where we felt confident with our goaltender. And I'm sure you remember the days where we had John Gillies or Jonas Hiller, and and I shouldn't bring up Jonas Hiller because actually when we signed him, I was pumped. I thought he was going to be the ticket, but it didn't end up being the ticket. But we had all those years where every night it was like, man, who's going to be in net? And if we get scored on right away, we're in trouble. And it's nice this year to go, turn the TV on or walk into the Saddle Dome and be like, I feel confident. We got Markstrom in net tonight, or even Vladar. I'm fine with him too. And it's been fun to see the defense develop like they have.
Yeah, and I think to touch on the goaltending again, like Vladar's been very good in the vast majority of his starts. Not that he's had a lot, but I mean, I'd like to see more of him down the stretch. But it's funny you mentioned some of those other names. Like I was going through some old hockey cards earlier. Joey McDonald, Red O'Bara, Kari Ramo, and some of those guys like Ramo and Hiller, they like the 15 playoffs. Like they don't get there without those two guys, right?
No, Hiller was great.
Yeah, but that sustained success just didn't happen. Like it's they've been looking for a goalie, since Kiprusoff. But the other thing you mentioned that I couldn't agree more with you on in terms of why the team's done so well was Oliver Kylington. Like when Gio left, everybody wondered who's going to man the power play. Not that he's been the power play a lot, but okay, who's going to move the puck? Who's going to get into the forwards? Who's going to skate and join the rush? And he's been absolutely fantastic. And we all, we're thinking it was going to be Valimaki or another free agent signing, but Kylington has been unbelievable.
Yeah, he's really been unbelievable. And I also think that Rasmus Andersson has really stepped up his game this year too. And I've liked him for almost all the years that we've had him. Last year, I was like, I thought he took a step back last year, but this year, the way he controls the puck, he's shooting the puck a lot more, and just looks like he's playing with a lot more confidence. And we've named 5 of the 6 defenders now, or excuse me, 4 of the 6, and we've left out Tanev, which is a rock, and Hannafin, who I feel is definitely a solid D man too. And it's like we got a strong defense.
Yeah, and I think there's even some good guys in the reserves too. Like a lot of people don't talk much, but Michael Stone was a totally different player under Daryl Sutter. Way more consistent, and I think he could jump in the pinch. And Connor Mackey is doing a great job in Stockton. So I think if Kylington's missing any time after last night, and I'm not sure at this point that he will. He seems like he might be fine, but I think Mackey'd be the first one to be recalled on the left side and thrown in the lineup.
I think Mackey's going to be a key part of the team next year. Number one, his salary is we're gonna have to use a guy with a lower salary next year.
Absolutely.
So I think he's going to be a key part. And Michael Stone, like I've never in my life seen a player that can sit out 20 games, come into the lineup, and it's like he played the other day.
Yep.
And he's just calm, composed, nothing to it. And I love his shot from the point. He's got a rocket.
Oh, he's got an absolute bomb. And I think that's what I miss the most about when he's in the lineup. It's just fun to watch the guy shoot. So I hope that, similar to Dan Vladar, like he'll get a couple reps down the stretch just to keep him fresh in case of injury. But we'll see what happens.
What is your biggest fear? As we, I guess you start to consider this a stretch now. What's your biggest fear heading into this stretch?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about that because there's been nothing much to fear this season, other than the occasional setback like the other night in Vancouver. But I guess the one thing I keep coming back to is that the core of this team has yet to achieve anything. I know that's been said before. I feel like the right mix of players is around them now. Getting to Foley's a big help too. They're really thin on the right side. So, but in the back of my head, it's just that fear of, okay, they've only, kind of make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, and only advance past the first round once when they ran into that really stacked Ducks team. So
Yeah.
I like to think that it's going to be different this year, and there's every reason to believe it. And you see a lot of that being written too, right? Like the stats are all there, but still, when push comes to shove, and it's a 7-game series, it's like, okay, is this team? Can they really go? Make a deep run for the first time since they've had this core? And I think they can, but that doubt's always there, right?
Yeah, and I have that same doubt, and I think we'd be ignorant if we didn't have that doubt. One of the
Leafs fans.
Good one. The one thing that I see a little different this year is I've never looked at our roster and thought we're built for the playoffs until this year. And I think there's still some question marks. I still, as much as I'll give Johnny Gaudreau all the props in the world, I got to see how he handles difficult situations in the playoffs this year. I just got to see how that offensive core does in clutch games in the playoffs and how they handle the physicality. I don't worry about some of the guys, but I do worry about some. I don't worry about our backhand at all, and I don't worry about our goaltending. And that's crazy to say that because of what we went through as fans. But this year, I feel pretty darn comfortable.
Yep, and I think that's another reason why a guy like Toffoli's brought in, because he's won a cup, and there's other guys on the team that have too. Obviously, Trevor Lewis and Brad Richardson as well. But to have a scoring forward who's kind of been in the trenches is hopefully that rubs off on the other guys, and they can make a run. But I understand completely what you're saying. It's a bit of an unknown, right, with a lot of the forward groups. So again, it's going to be kind of wait and see. But the system is conducive to success for these guys, right? So there's no reason to believe that, even though it's a bit tighter checking, obviously, that they should be able to succeed.
Yeah, my biggest fear heading down the stretch is injuries. This team has escaped injuries all year. Our biggest injury has been Pitlick. It's like,
yeah.
Okay. That's seriously been our biggest injury until, we'll wait to see what happens and what the word is on Kylington. From what I'm hearing out of Calgary today, that it's good news. So that's great. But I just feel like, you're going to have injuries. So it's been fortunate that we haven't this year, but it scares me down the stretch.
Yeah, and they play a lot of games in a short amount of time, right? And the games do get tighter. So that's a very valid fear, but it, barring anything serious, it might be an opportunity to get guys like Matthew Phillips or Jacob Pelche up to get a little bit of seasoning too, because this is going to be, it's a really good team, so this should be a year to make some noise. How much, we'll see.
Is Brad Treliving done making moves?
Oof, it's a great question. I don't think so. I think he loves insurance, right? So I'm sure he's going to go out and try to find another left shot defenseman, somebody cheap and mobile that could jump in to pinch. He's done that at virtually every trade deadline, and then probably another forward as well. Obviously the cap situation's tight, but I think just a few extra bodies. I don't think there'd be any significant moves because there's no reason to make any. Toffoli was the big one, and it's done, and good on him for getting it done well ahead of the deadline. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think it'll just be some minor tweaking. I don't even think, I think he will bring a defenseman in, but I don't even think it'll be a defenseman that'll mess with our top six. It would just be, like you said, insurance if we do get that injury bug, because, I remember hearing Brian Burke say one time, you have to have 10 quality defensemen going into a playoff series if you're going to win. And I always thought, man, that seems like a lot. But when you think about it, I don't know, is there ever too many, I guess, for a stretch run? Because, stuff tends to happen to defensemen in the playoffs too. So,
well, when you think about it, like 2004, again, Denny Gauthier missed almost the entire playoff run with a knee injury. Tony Lidman was out. So Monador and Commodore both jumped in. Brendan Evans drew in a game for,
yes,
I think it was that same run. Like, so right there, you've got,
that's
7, 8, maybe 9 guys, right?
It's going to take that probably. So I think you're right there. I do think they'll add a winger. I do think they'll add. I don't know what happens. I hate to say this. I don't think they're going to trade Dylan Dubé, but I don't know if he's the guy down the stretch. Do you? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not high on Brett Ritchie, but I understand why he drew in last night. They wanted to be more physical, and you got to keep those guys hungry. So, but I think it was good to take Dubé out because he's really been snake bit most of the year and largely ineffective when he's played. I don't want to see them give him away.
No, either do I.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does. But I mean, I think he can still be a really good player in the league. He's having. It's not really a sophomore jinx because he's been in the league a little bit longer than that, but that's kind of what it looks like. And I think he just has to find his footing. So sitting out a game or two might be the message that he needs.
It might be, and I don't think Richie's the guy, and I don't think he will be the guy come playoff time. I really don't. But I think he's a good stopgap now, and I think him drawing in last night. I mean, I think it was like I agree. I think it's going to be good for Dubé to sit down, and I don't doubt that on Tuesday night in Minnesota we don't go with the same lineup. I wouldn't be surprised, but we'll see what happens there. But I do think we're gonna add somebody for depth as far as forwards go too. The question that everybody's asking in Calgary, and I've worked the numbers a million times and tried to figure things out, but do you think Gaudreau, Tkachuk, Mangiapane, and Kylington will all be on the roster next season?
I do. I guess the follow-up question is how. Kylington.
I'm really one down onto that one right now because I don't think any of us really know how. Because there's so many unanswered questions on the fact that, I mean, what does Tkachuk sign for if it's long term? What does the numbers are just so kind of all over the place, and
Yeah.
What would Gaudreau draw on if he went to free agency? And is he going to test free agency and still consider Calgary? There's so many unanswered questions.
Well, the one thing I can say about Gaudreau, just from everything I've read and heard, is that Calgary is going to be a consideration right till the very end for him. He does love it there, which surprises a lot of the media because I think always an American kid, opposite coast, and all that. But it'll always be a consideration right down to the wire. But you got to think. I mean, the point pace he's on and the pedigree of the player. I mean, it's going to be $10 million.
You think it's going to get that much?
If you can get him for 9 or 9.5, I think you've got a deal.
See, I do. I think the number is going to be like a 9 or 9.25. I don't know why.
And I think that he might do that, to allow room for Tkachuk, Mangiapane. I think Kylington's going to be a bridge deal. I mean, he's not making much now, so I could see him, getting him for $2.5 million, maybe on a 1-year deal or something.
Do you think they dare do that with Kylington again? They've done that to him so many times that I feel like I feel like they've played their cards on him too much, and I feel like it's going to be like a 4-year, $4 million deal
if they could get him like a Rasmus Anderson deal, I'd do it all day long. That's a great contract. He signed for 5 or 6 years at 4 and change, I think.
4 or 5? Is it 4.5 or 4.25 or something like that?
4.25 is the number I have in my head, but I might be a little off on that. But
it was a good value.
Yeah. So if they can do that, it's great. But I think there's a lot of internal discussions because you've heard Tree Living use that the analogy of the pieces of the pie. And if you sit down with a guy like Schilling and say, listen, our cap situation, we want to sign you to a 1-year deal, and next summer you're going to get paid. If there's any loyalty to if he likes the coach, he likes the city, all that, then I think that's a discussion that takes place.
I think so.
But it's going to be tricky, man. Like there's the contract situation. I mean, I don't know if you remember when Roman Turek took a pay cut to stay in Calgary when Kiprusoff emerged. I wish somebody would go to Monahan and say, look, man, 6.75, like let's cut you down to 4 and spread this around, make a winning team here, right?
My gut tells me Monahan's not in Calgary next year.
Hard to find a taker though with that cap hit and his lack
of
production.
They're going to have to package him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a pick or a good prospect's going with him for sure.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think they're going to have to make this work. I really do. I think, it sucks because I like Sean Monahan, and
he's got a great shot, and he's been a good soldier for the team, and he gets a ton of criticism, right?
Every year in Calgary we have a whipping boy, though.
Yeah,
like
I think most cities do. We just don't always know who it is in other cities, right? But we all know who it is in Calgary, obviously, as fans.
Freaking TJ Brody was a whipping boy. Then we went to Sam Bennett, and then we just keep. If Monahan's gone next year, it'll probably be Michael Backlund, which is really going to make me mad because I like Michael Backlund's game. But
yeah, I'm a big fan of his too, and now he's right up there in terms of the most games played for the franchise, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Do you consider the Flames a cup contender?
I don't know how you don't at this point. I mean, the question, that I would ask back to anybody who doubts it is, okay, well, why not? I mean, all the evidence is there. Like they're ranked so high in every meaningful statistical category. They score a ton of goals. They play great defense. Their penalty killing is fantastic. Their power play is pretty damn good. Could be better, but pretty good. Expected goals is right up there. Like, and as much as players, kind of drive you nuts when they get signed, like the Trevor Lewises and the aging veterans who won cups 6-7 years ago. I think when the playoffs come around, you do need guys like that, those intangibles. So I don't see any reason to believe they're not a contender right now, especially after the addition of Toffoli.
I agree. I just, in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I've finally accepted the fact that I will say they're a cup contender, not just to myself, but to others.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Way too many years of jinxing myself. So I lay low until I feel really, really confident. And I did the same thing as you. I had a buddy say, well, there's no way they beat Vegas. And I said, well, we're better in net. I think we match up with them fine now. And I would have never thought we'd be able to say that at this point, but we do. We statistically match up with them just fine. And I think Colorado is going to be the big test in the West, and it'll be interesting to see. And what really, really interests me is to see if we get an Edmonton Calgary in the playoffs this year.
Oh, man. Remember how close we were in 2006 when Calgary blew that 7th game to Anaheim? I really thought it was going to happen then.
Would you want that? Would you want that this year?
You see that topic a lot now. I honestly, right now, I don't. I mean, I would at some point, but I don't want it the first round. The Flames struggle with the Oilers right now in the regular season. They really do.
I'd be fine with it in the second and third round, but I don't want that as a first round matchup.
No, it's I think we'd be okay, but that doubt just creeps in when you watch, McDavid, flying along the boards and roof one past the goaltender. It's like, oh god, like this, we've seen this shit so many times, right?
And then the fact that if we did lose, the live down factor would just be tenfold. I mean, this year, if we go out in the first round, it's going to be devastating, but if we went out to the Oilers, it would be awful. It'd be catastrophic. It'd be terrible.
Yeah, it really, really would. I mean, as somebody, like yourself, I'm not living in Calgary. I'd like to think I could hide my fandom if I had to, but it's too far gone. Everybody knows how I feel about this team, so I'd have to live with it like the rest of the Calgarians would.
Yes, it's and I guess that's what makes true fans though when we live and die on how our team does. But
absolutely.
We're definitely on a fun ride this year. It's exciting every night. You feel positive going to the rink, and it's been a great ride this year. But thanks for joining me, Kyle. It's fun visiting with you, and I'd love to have you on the show again soon. It's going to be fun going down this stretch run.
Oh, absolutely, and I'd love to do it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joining Flames Unfiltered now, Justin Thompson joins the show. Justin, happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor. This is actually my first ever podcast.
Well, good. Well, good to have you on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became a Flames fan, and just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Justin. I'm 22 years old, and it was the 2009 playoffs, actually, Game 1 against Chicago. My auntie and Nana were sitting down watching the game, and I decided to join them. And I just never looked back since then. I've always been a fan.
Well, that's good. Well, that was a little bit a while ago now. So time goes fast, and that was a good series, wasn't it?
It was. It very much was. I'll be honest. I don't remember a whole lot about it, just because I was like 10 years old when that series happened. But it was a very good series from what I remember. Yeah.
What do you do now to keep yourself busy?
Sorry?
What do you do now for entertainment and keeping yourself busy? Just watching Flames hockey?
Yeah, I watch Flames hockey a lot. I watch highlights a lot. I like to study a lot on the Flames, and I just go out with friends now, and yeah.
Well, that's great. What is your greatest Flames memory?
Greatest Flames memory. That would have to be 2019 playoffs, game 1. I was actually at that game in the iconic Platinum Club.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was sitting right below George Canyon and his family, so that was really cool.
That is cool. That's a cool memory. Who's your all-time favorite Flames player?
Easily Mika Kiprusoff. Just everything about him from the way he just battled every night in net and never really let up.
He was definitely a competitor and one that man, look at how important he was to our run in 04 and the years after, keeping a team that really kind of struggled talent-wise, but really manned the ship and carried the team. And just a pleasure to watch him and how great he was. And after Kipper retired, it took us a long time, I'd say, up until just recent years when we got Markstrom, that we went through a lot of goaltenders in Calgary.
Yeah. How many goaltenders did we go through? Like, there was Yoni Ortio, there was Kari Ramo.
Yeah, McDonald,
Mike Smith,
Jonas Hiller, Chad Johnson. I like Chad Johnson. He was good. We went through way too many. Let's put it that way. Way too many. And it's really nice to go to a game now and know that you have quality goaltending, isn't it? It makes it a whole lot different as a fan, doesn't it?
It makes it a lot more fun to watch too. To know that you have that quality goaltender, to know you have your number one starter is where it's at. It's a lot more fun to watch. Definitely.
Who's your favorite player on the current roster?
On the current roster, Johnny Gaudreau.
Yes,
the way he can just take the puck and just put it on a string is incredible to watch day in and day out.
So here's the big question: is Johnny Gaudreau re-signing in Calgary next year?
I say he does. Did you see what Craig Conroy said the other day?
I did. It was taken slightly out of context because Conroy was kind of joking more than anything. But yes, I did hear that. And boy, media took a they cut the clip and only gave a portion of it and just and went hog wild with it on social media. But I do think Calgary is going to do everything in their power to re-sign him. And I think if Johnny Gaudreau doesn't re-sign in Calgary, it's going to be because Johnny Gaudreau didn't want to, not because the Flames didn't go after him hard. Because I do think the Flames will do everything in their power to get number 13 signed. Yeah, so do I. And it does scare me a little bit, though, that he is a UFA instead of an RFA. Yep, me too.
This offseason. So it does scare me that he'll go back to Philadelphia or somewhere that can actually compete in the playoffs for a cup.
Yeah. I was more worried about that last year than I am this year. But then there was moments last year where I was okay if he would have left. And I hate to say that because that sounds crazy. That's crazy talk after watching him this year. But I do think this year's playoffs are going to be a test for Johnny Gaudreau in how he handles playoff hockey. And I also do think that we may see a different Johnny Gaudreau this year in the playoffs, just like we have in the regular season, because he's been dynamic this year and he's been a lot of fun to watch and really has been a good leader for this team this year.
Yeah, he has. And not just Gaudreau, but the whole Flames team. I feel like it's going to be a real eye-opener to see what they do in the playoffs this year, how they perform under pressure in the playoffs this year. And yeah, because we have how many contracts coming up? There's Gaudreau, there's Tkachuk, Mangiapane.
Yeah, there's, Gaudreau's a UFA, Tkachuk's an RFA, Mangiapane's an RFA, Kylington's an RFA. We have, we didn't think we'd even worry about it, but what are we going to do with Gabranson? And there's a lot of actually guys that have the opportunity to leave. It's going to be a lot of work for Treliving in the offseason. I'm trying not to focus on it too much right now, just because I'm enjoying the success that we are having. But there's going to be a lot of work to do this offseason.
There is. You made a good point on trying not to focus too much on that and just trying to enjoy what we're doing now. But yeah, there's a lot of work for Brad in the off season, but I also find that's when he does his best work.
I agree.
Is in the off season.
I agree. You mentioned, the success this team has had this year. What do you think the major reasons for major reasons we're having the success this year that we haven't in years past?
In years past, the goaltending has definitely not been there. Like we were talking about earlier, we haven't had that quality number one goaltender. But also, I guess, as much as I hate to say it, getting rid of Giordano, it was time to move on from him. He was getting old. Just bringing in the new faces, I find, really helps us as well.
It was definitely bittersweet with Gio. I do think it was probably, we can definitely say in hindsight that it was the right decision. Now, could we have had the success with Gio? Yeah, I think so. But I agree. He's on the wrong side as far as age goes, and I really saw a decline in his speed, I guess, not so much his play, but his speed, which did affect his play. It was sad to see him go, but when I look at this defensive core that we have right now, and I love this top six we have right now. It's really, really good, and I don't even mind, Stone and Mackey, kind of in waiting in the wings to fill a spot in case there is an injury.
Yeah. I've been really surprised with how Stone has played these last couple years, or I guess this last year under Sutter. He hasn't played at all this season, but last season he was.
He's gotten a couple games in this year, but very, very, very few. But he is one guy that he's really different. He can step in after not playing 20 games, and it doesn't look like he skipped a beat. So that's definitely a guy you want in your press box, a veteran presence that knows his role and will step in when you need him in case there's an injury. And I feel real comfortable having him back there.
Yeah, so do I. And I feel like Daryl Sutter is exactly who he was waiting for too. It's that old school sort of style of play.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think the biggest surprise has been this year?
Biggest surprise, I'd say just the way we've played in general. Like, also the bounce back season that we've had from Markey after last season, just really blew my sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out here if you know what I'm saying.
He's outdone your expectations. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this team has been filled with numerous surprises this year. I don't think any of us saw Gabranson and Zadorov being what they are. Did we think Oliver Kylington would explode into a top line defenseman? Did we think Markstrom would bounce back to the level he has with an 8 shutouts, tracking to be Kiprusoff's record of 10? I just look around this roster and I'm like, man, we got just surprise after surprise after surprise. And then Brad Treliving goes out and gets Tyler Toffoli for us to shore up our top end forwards. And boy, this team is just really coming together as a team that could go somewhere in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think all of Calgary has high hopes for the Flames in this year's playoffs. It's just they have to perform this year.
Well, it is definitely do or die. The heat is on. This team is built for the playoffs. I have pretty good confidence this year that we are going to have playoff success. If we can just avoid injuries down the stretch run here and make sure that we're on an upswing heading into the playoffs, and I think there's definitely bright hopes ahead. Do you consider this team a Stanley Cup contender?
Compared to teams like, I think next Saturday will really tell me whether I consider this team a cup contender or not, because we'll be versing the Avalanche. But compared to teams like the Avalanche and Minnesota, right now I do. I very much do see this team as a contender.
I do too. And I've just allowed myself to admit that here in the last week and a half. I look at how we match up against a lot of teams in the Western Conference, and I think we've proven that that we can pretty much play with anybody. And I agree with you. Saturday night will be a big test. I look at teams like Vegas. I look at teams like Colorado. And I look at teams like Minnesota as the key teams in the West to get by. And I liked our performance last night, albeit it did get a little sloppy at times. I've liked our performance against Vegas this year for the most part. And, I think we're going to see a different Vegas team next time. We are not obviously going to blow them out 6-0, but we do play Vegas, I believe, 2 more times down the stretch, Colorado 3 more times, Edmonton. I believe it's important that we get past the demons of the Edmonton Oilers. So we have some real tests coming down this stretch run. Would you, okay, the odds are low that we have a Battle of Alberta in the playoffs, but would you welcome that and be excited, or would that scare the crap out of you?
I think a little bit of both. It would get me excited as the games came through, like as the game started, but then I'd be like midway through the game, oh my God, this is actually happening. I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. My anxiety would be through the roof. Yeah, it would be stressful. I've had numerous people ask me the question, well, do you want to see that? And I always tell them, well, I want to see it if I know we win. But I sure don't want to lose to the Edmonton Oilers. And it would be a very, very tough pill to swallow. When you think of the Flames and you look at our opponents, who do you consider our biggest rival?
Our biggest rival, are you talking for playoffs or just now?
Just for everyday games. Do you consider the Edmonton our biggest rival? I mean, that's probably the easy answer. I always look at like Edmonton as our biggest rival, but I feel like there's games against Vancouver are always intense also.
Yeah, in terms of who the fans want to watch the most, definitely like the games against Edmonton are our biggest rivals. But I feel like games against like Anaheim or Vegas are also pretty intense.
Yeah.
Just because we've had that lingering sort of, oh, we can't win in those buildings.
They've definitely been our nemesis. Yeah, we had how many years where we didn't have wins in Anaheim, and then now we're kind of in that stretch when we go to Vegas. It's been a tough road in Vegas for the Calgary Flames.
It has, and I'm worried about that if it comes down to us playing Vegas in the playoffs. That's the only team I'm worried about knocking us out in the first round.
Yeah, I don't think we'll play Vegas in the first round. I'd be shocked if we did. I mean, not saying it can't happen, especially with the way they're falling in the standings right now. But yeah, that would be an interesting matchup. I look at, Edmonton, Colorado, Minnesota, and Vegas being the tough opponents. I mean, I looked at the last night's game, and a 7-game series of that would be pretty physical and intense also.
It would be brutal. I feel like a lot of cuts and bruises would be taking place, and it would be hard on both sides of the players.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot to look forward to heading down the stretch here, Ron, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. I expect you'll be cheering the Flames on as we go down the stretch, and we'll definitely be talking as we go down the stretch.
Yeah, every game I'll be cheering them on. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for this opportunity tonight.
Well, thank you. All right, Flames fans, time for a little bit of Flames news, and scary moment in that Minnesota Wild game last Saturday night in Calgary. As Oliver Kylington took, I don't even know how you describe it, a momentum-filled flander into the boards that left him and his neck completely exposed, and the injury looked devastating. It did. It was not a lot of movement from Kylington. One of the scariest things that I can remember seeing in quite some time. Kylington got up. He looked extremely dazed and was helped off the ice and looked not good going down the tunnel. I want to preface this by saying I don't believe it was the Minnesota, I think it was Ryan Hartman. It was not in any way did I think it was his fault. I know a lot of Flames fans wanted to throw blame right away, and my original thought was somebody go get him. But the more I watched it, I thought that was just an awkward, weird, crazy hockey play gone wrong. Now, Daryl Sutter, it came out later in the evening, said that he was fine after the game. Rasmus Anderson said that Kylington seemed fine. It was just a real odd situation. I saw some notes about, and the question was whether he lost consciousness or not, because if he lost consciousness, he automatically has to go into NHL concussion protocol, which I believe would have had him out a minimum of, let me see what it says here. He would have had to go through the assessment process and had to have been cleared by a team physician, which would have been a missing of games for sure in this situation, and would also put Calgary kind of in a cap crunch of being able to call up. Michael Stone would have been the guy to jump right in. But all that for naught, as Kylington did play Tuesday night in Minnesota and looked normal. But holy cow, was that ever a scary, scary injury, and one that I think everybody in Calgary, and I mean, really the hockey world was like, I just don't want to see that happen again. I don't know how you prevent that. Oliver Kylington's a real fast, shifty skater, and it was just a momentum situation gone wrong. And I'm really, really happy that Oliver Kylington is fine. I think that night I even tweeted out that there's no way this isn't long term. It just looked that bad and that scary, and very happy for him. Very glad that Oliver Kylington is good and is clicking. Now, Tkachuk hits the game at home. The first night we beat the Wild, it was Tkachuk's 400th game. He went on that night to score 2 goals and an assist. It doesn't seem like a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, who to me seems like we just came into the league, should be at 400 games already. It's crazy. It's crazy to think how long this group's together and how quick time goes. Markstrom was named the second star of February. He went 8-1 in the month of February, 2.04 goals against average, a .929 save percentage, and racked up another shutout. Mitch Marner was a number 1 star. Patrick Laine was a number 3 star. Markstrom has been a rock. I have learned this year more than any other year that having a goalie like Markstrom, or teams who have had these stable factors in net where you consistently get good goaltending, what a luxury that is. And how it makes playing the game and having success playing the game so much easier. Jacob Markstrom is such a factor for this team. It's crazy. Really, really, really fun to see this success that he is having. Quick fact for the Flames. They are currently on pace for 109 points. That would be second best in franchise history. They had 117 points in the 88-89 season. The season they won the Stanley Cup. Flames sign Rory Kearns to a 3-year entry-level 3-year entry-level contract, as I learned to talk here, which begins in 22-23, is a 2026 round pick. And he had 33 goals, 84 points in 50 games with the Sioux Greyhounds this season. So that's a nice quick signing for the Calgary Flames to get him locked up. Another acquisition from the Flames today, as the Flames traded future considerations to the Montreal Canadiens for goaltender Michael McNevin. He has been assigned to the AHL Heat. And when this came out, Flames Twitter kind of went crazy. What are we trading Dustin Wolf? Are we getting rid of Dustin Wolf? Do we not have faith? And what's going on? Why do we need another goalie? Why do we need another goalie? Can a team have enough depth? And if this goalie's been scouted like Vladar was scouted, like, is that a bad deal? Tyler Parsons' ship has probably sailed. We need organizational depth. And I wouldn't make too much out of this. I think a lot of people have made a lot out of this, and I don't understand it. But I don't think it's dumb. If they feel confident in him and they think that he's going to be an asset to the organization, giving away a future consideration to the Montreal Canadiens, sounds like a pretty good deal to me. But I wouldn't read into it as it changing anything with Dustin Wolf. I don't see that at all. Let's roll through the standings real quick. We don't have to talk about games behind, as Calgary is 2 games behind most teams in the division, but they sit atop with 70 points in 52 games and a remarkable plus 57 goals or goal differential. Los Angeles Kings, surprisingly, have vaulted up to second. They've won 7-2-1 in the last 10. They did lose their last game, but they're up to 65 points, and Vegas has fallen to third. The Edmonton Oilers is one back of that. Anaheim is 61. They're creeping up on Vegas. Vegas has went 5-4-1 in their last 10. Edmonton's won 7-3 in their last 10. Edmonton Oilers have been pretty hot as of late. And the Anaheim Ducks have started to waver and fall. They're 4-5-1. They sit at 61 points. Still with hope alive. Are they alive? I don't know. The Canucks sit at 58 points in 55 games. They've went 6-4-0 in their last 10. They're probably at you're going to have to go on a run. They're going to have to go on a run. It's a long shot, but we're going to see what happens over the next week. I think we will determine the future of the rest of the season for the Vancouver Canucks. San Jose out of the mix, 54 points in 7th, and the Seattle Kraken way down at 37 points. We know they're not alive. Vegas's losing streak has shaken up the playoff picture. When you look at the wild card and you see where it all shakes out, and the playoffs started today. In the Central, 2-3 would be Minnesota, St. Louis. In the Pacific, 2-3 would be LA, Vegas. Wow, would that be a matchup? Colorado would get the Edmonton Oilers, and Calgary would get the Nashville Predators. That would be interesting. Dallas sits one game, 61 points, 2 points back of the Edmonton Oilers for the final spot. Anaheim also 2 points back. Vancouver, 4 points back. We'll see where this all shakes out. Yeah, no, Vancouver is 3 points back. I'm sorry. We'll see where all this shakes out. And if the Vancouver Canucks can stay alive, if Vegas keeps losing, it's really been an interesting couple weeks in the standings in the Pacific. Edmonton Oilers, class act again is, Brendan Perlini's mom sees that he's been placed on waivers before the Edmonton Oilers even let their son know. Man, that is not a look that you should be proud of if you are the Edmonton Oilers. God, I pray our organization never does anything like that. Get all your Flames Unfiltered podcasts, team news, team updates, and highlights at flamesunfiltered.com. All right, Flames fans, let's preview what lies ahead. Thursday night, March 3rd, full capacity back at the Saddle Dome. It is going to be rocking. Calgary fans, you better be louder than the Montreal Canadiens fans as they head into town. Montreal currently 8th in the Atlantic, 13 wins, only 33 points. The team has been struggling. I don't even know if struggling is the word. They have been better. 500 hockey team, 5-5-0 in their last 10. Martin St. Louis in town. Yeah, it's changed the attitude a little bit in Montreal. They're going to be a little bit better than we expected. This is the second of two meetings. Montreal did beat the Flames 4-2 back on November 11th at the Bell Center in Montreal. Calgary looks for redemption Thursday night, full house at the Saddle Dome. It's going to be a big one. Then Saturday night, the matchup everybody's been waiting for is the class of the Western Conference. As the Calgary Flames take on the Colorado Avalanche, Saturday night hockey night in Canada. First of three meetings on the season between these two powerhouses, and really another measuring stick for the Calgary Flames fans. It doesn't get any easier as the Flames are back home Monday night, March 7th, Battle of Alberta, the third of four meetings this year. Edmonton winning the first two, 5-2, 5-3, both of those at the Rogers Place in Edmonton. Now we get our chance of the next two at the Saddle Dome in Calgary. That should be a good one too. Tuesday night, back-to-back. Two big opponents as the Washington Capitals come in Tuesday night as the Flames get another back-to-back. The schedule is frantic. It is busy, and some really interesting opponents coming up, and should be a lot of fun as the Flames continue to move forward to the playoffs and just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. It is a really, really good time to be a Calgary Flames fan. And what a busy weekend this is going to be. Games almost every single night. And yeah, it was fun. The show was great. Having two good guests join the show. I thank both of them for joining me. Always fun talking Flames hockey. We're back again next week to discuss this ridiculously busy weekend. And let's keep the wins coming, Flames. Let's do this. This is going good. Everybody's happy in Cowtown. Things are good. Check out FlamesUnfiltered.com for all the episodes. All news about the Flames, everything you're going to need to know about the Flames on FlamesUnfiltered.com. Get on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Check us out on YouTube. We're on all of them. Have a great week, Flames fans. It's good to be a Flames fan. Get connected. Flames Unfiltered can be found on Twitter @FlameUnfiltered. And also make sure you check out our Facebook page @FlamesUnfiltered. Check out host Brad Burud on Twitter @BradBurud. And if you like what you hear, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can find Flames Unfiltered on all the major podcast players. Thanks again and enjoy the hockey action.
Play on! Yeah, baby! Play on! Yeah, baby!
Thanks for tuning in to Flames Unfiltered. Check back for more action-packed Calgary Flames talk. This episode of Flames Unfiltered was copyrighted and produced by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.